Chris thought cashback was free money at first. That's how the system introduces itself to you. Not as debt, not as manipulation, as optimization. Spend normally, earn rewards. Simple, clean, harmless. That's what makes it dangerous. Because modern financial traps don't look dangerous anymore. They look smart, and smart-looking mistakes are the hardest ones to recognize. The first cashback notification I ever got was something tiny, like $3 and some change. Financially, it meant nothing, but emotionally, it hit differently. Because for the first time, spending didn't feel like losing money anymore. It felt like partially earning it back. That tiny shift changes behavior immediately, quietly. And the quiet behavior changes are always the ones that last the longest. At first, it's just normal purchases. Coffee, groceries, Uber rides, random online orders late at night because shipping is free, and every transaction gives you a tiny reward, tiny dopamine, tiny reinforcement, tiny proof that spending is somehow productive. That's the real product, not the cashback, the emotional permission. The system is brilliant because it transforms consumption into achievement. Every purchase starts feeling like progress. Points increase, levels unlock, statuses upgrade. Humans are incredibly vulnerable to visible progress bars. Apps know this. Games know this. Casinos know this. Banks figured it out too. That's when spending starts changing shape psychologically. You walk into a store planning to spend $80 and somehow walk out spending $240 because your brain starts calculating rewards instead of cost. Well, I'll get 5% back. That sentence sounds financially intelligent, but it isn't. It's just spending extra money while emotionally framing it as savings. And once your brain learns that trick, everything changes. The expensive option starts feeling strategic instead of expensive. That's the trap most people never notice. The system doesn't need to make you reckless. It just needs to slightly distort how your brain interprets spending. Tiny distortions repeated thousands of times become financial identity. You stop asking yourself, do I actually want this? And start asking, how can I maximize rewards? Massive difference, because one question protects your money, the other protects the system. And modern financial systems don't want irresponsible people. Irresponsible people eventually stop qualifying for products. What they want is permanently engaged consumers. That's much more profitable. That's why the emails never stop. Exclusive bonus category, limited time multiplier, don't miss your rewards. The language feels urgent, almost like failing to spend is somehow falling behind financially. That's intentional. Modern marketing is built around one core idea: make restraint feel inefficient. If restraint feels emotionally wrong, spending accelerates automatically. Then suddenly you've got multiple cards. One for travel, one for dining, one for online shopping, and weirdly, you start feeling financially smarter because of it. That's the psychological genius behind rewards culture. It disguises consumption obsession as financial literacy. Tracking categories feels productive. Optimizing purchases feels strategic. But most people are just maximizing tiny percentages while ignoring the massive financial picture completely. A person earning 2% cashback while carrying consumer debt is optimizing in the wrong dimension entirely. That's like collecting rainwater while your house is on fire. Technically useful, practically irrelevant. Another thing nobody talks about is how cashback changes the emotional pain of spending. That's critical. Healthy financial behavior actually requires friction. The small internal hesitation before buying something unnecessary protects people more than they realize. But rewards programs reduce that hesitation. Spending feels softer, less painful, more justified, more exciting. The brain remembers rewards stronger than expenses. That's why casinos use chips instead of cash. Distance reduces emotional awareness. Tap to pay does the same thing. Cashback amplifies it even further. Now spending feels rewarding while the actual money leaving your life becomes psychologically abstract. That combination is incredibly powerful. And the scary part is that intelligent people fall for this constantly because it feels rational while it's happening. Most financial mistakes don't feel stupid in real time. They feel justified. That's the mechanism. You hear people bragging about flying for free, but nobody mentions the $12,000 they spent generating those points in the first place. Rewards culture hides gross spending behind emotional framing. People remember the free vacation. They forget the spending behavior required to create it. That's how the illusion survives. Then come the premium cards. Heavy metal cards with luxury branding and insane annual fees. 5 years earlier, paying hundreds of dollars annually for a credit card would have sounded ridiculous. Now there are entire videos online explaining why it's actually worth it. That phrase destroys more money than impulse ever will. Worth it. Because now people emotionally reverse engineer spending decisions through benefit calculations. Airport lounges, travel credits, hotel perks, dining status. Every feature exists for one reason: increase attachment to the spending ecosystem. And attachment changes behavior. You start arriving at airports early just to use lounges, booking more expensive hotels because the reward multiplier is higher, keeping subscriptions you barely use because canceling feels like losing benefits. That's another trap people underestimate. Once humans psychologically integrate perks into identity, removing them feels painful even when the perks were never necessary to begin with. That's how lifestyle inflation actually spreads, not through giant purchases, through normalized upgrades, better seats, faster delivery, premium memberships, tiny convenience fees, small enough not to trigger resistance, individually harmless, collectively enormous. The system understands something fundamental about psychology. Humans adapt upward incredibly fast. What felt luxurious 6 months ago eventually feels normal, then necessary, then impossible to lose. That's how consumption escalates without feeling dramatic. At some point, the rewards themselves become more exciting than the purchases. That's when you realize the game itself became addictive, not the products, the optimization. Humans love systems that produce measurable progress, even meaningless progress. That's why people obsessed over followers they don't monetize, achievements that don't matter, and points that don't create actual wealth. The brain often confuses tracking with improvement. Rewards programs weaponize that confusion beautifully. Then buy now, pay later enters the picture. Klarna, Afterpay, Affirm, different names, same psychology. The monthly payment is small enough to bypass emotional resistance. That's the trick. The full price disappears. Only the fragment stays visible. A $240 purchase suddenly becomes 4 easy payments of $60. And the human brain processes installments differently than totals. That's why financing changes spending behavior so aggressively. The pain gets delayed and divided, and delayed pain almost always feels smaller than immediate pain. That's why people start buying things they never would have purchased up front, not because they suddenly became wealthier, because the emotional friction got redesigned. That's modern finance in one sentence. Reduce emotional friction enough and consumption expands automatically. And now debt doesn't even feel like debt anymore. It feels convenient. Friendly apps, soft colors, smooth animations, flexible payments. Nobody says borrowing anymore. Now it's unlocking flexibility. Words matter because language shapes emotional perception, and emotional perception shapes behavior. Social media makes this even worse. Almost every influencer lifestyle online is financed somehow. Leased cars, monthly payments, credit ecosystems. But online, it looks like ownership. People compare their reality to other people's financed appearances, and comparison accelerates spending faster than logic can slow it down. A person completely satisfied with life can become financially irrational in under 10 minutes of scrolling. That's how powerful visual status signaling is. And after enough exposure, you stop wanting products specifically. You start wanting feelings, status, novelty, validation, excitement. The products are just emotional delivery systems. That realization changes how you see advertising permanently. Ads rarely sell utility anymore. They sell identity upgrades. Drink this and become attractive. Wear this and become respected. Buy this and become disciplined. Modern marketing attaches emotional transformation to ordinary transactions. That's why people overspend emotionally while believing they're purchasing practically. Subscription culture pushes it even further. Music subscriptions, streaming subscriptions, food subscriptions, premium apps, luxury memberships. Tiny monthly charges, small enough individually not to trigger concern. That's intentional. Humans are much less sensitive to recurring small losses than large visible ones. So the economy slowly shifted from ownership toward permanent access payments. You no longer buy products. You rent ecosystems. And ecosystems create dependency. That's more profitable long term. One night I added up all my subscriptions and the total honestly shocked me. Not because I couldn't afford it, because most of them no longer improved my life meaningfully. They had become invisible financial background noise. That's another danger. Humans stop questioning repeated behaviors surprisingly fast, especially automated ones. Automation is operationally efficient, but psychologically it disconnects spending from awareness completely. And disconnected spending becomes permanent spending. Something else became obvious too. Wealthy people simplify aggressively. Fewer accounts, fewer subscriptions, fewer decisions. That surprised me because middle-class culture often associates complexity with sophistication. But truly wealthy people value clarity more than optimization theater. That's an important distinction. Optimization theater looks financially intelligent. Actual wealth creation usually looks boring. Consistent investing, controlled spending, long-time horizons, patience. None of that feels exciting enough for internet culture. Excitement monetizes better than discipline. That's why financial content online focuses so heavily on hacks instead of behavior. Hacks feel faster. People want shortcuts around emotional discipline. But most financial outcomes are behavioral long before they become mathematical. And eventually the real danger of free money becomes obvious. It's not the cashback itself, it's the conditioning. The constant reinforcement teaching people to emotionally associate spending with intelligence, progress, and identity. That conditioning changes lives slowly enough most people never notice it happening. The person who once questioned every purchase eventually starts upgrading automatically. Not because they became greedy, because the environment trained them to normalize consumption emotionally. That's why awareness matters more than percentages. Financially successful people usually look psychologically different. They resist impulse systems longer. They tolerate simplicity longer. They separate self-worth from visible consumption longer. That's the real edge, not secret investments, not magical side hustles, not cashback strategies. Behavioral control. I still use credit cards sometimes. I still earn rewards occasionally. But emotionally, the illusion broke permanently once I realized what these systems actually are. Behavior-shaping machines engineered to keep people emotionally engaged inside transaction loops for as long as possible. And once you see that clearly, the entire economy starts looking different. Every notification, every bonus offer, every limited time reward, every financing option, all competing aggressively for one thing, your impulses. Because impulses generate revenue faster than patience ever will. And the people who eventually escape the cycle usually realize one uncomfortable truth before everyone else. The goal was never becoming better at spending. The goal was becoming harder to manipulate emotionally.